Hello every guppy, my name is Pisces and I'm a professional Dead by Daylight coach on Fiverr. I have a flawless review record of over 175 star reviews and I want to welcome you back to my Timeless Guide to DBD series. So far in this series we've established exactly how to optimally control our characters in Chase, how to gain maximum information in loops with ease, and we reshaped our view of the game through the importance and understanding of distance in Chase. And we also broke down exactly what made windows and pallets safe and unsafe to use. If you struggle with any of these and haven't watched those videos yet, I highly encourage you to do so because this video builds off of that understanding quite a good bit. Alright, so without further ado, let's start talking about the most complex aspect of looping, and that is transferring. When it comes to looping as Survivor in Dead by Daylight, a high-level player will be able to connect multiple windows and pallets together in ways that minimize risk and uses minimal resources. What that means is a perfect Survivor will take as little mind games as possible and uses pallets only when needed, while of course taking hits only when there's no other option or a mind game happens to be lost. The key to transferring properly is also knowing the maps, because you won't be able to connect loops properly if you don't know where they're at. So allow me to potentially blow your mind and teach you about how almost every single map in Dead by Daylight loads in, which is 3 incredibly easy patterns to recognize. First, we have what I call wall spawns. These, simply put, are structures that are made up of various walls. Within these structures, there is a 100% guarantee to have a window, a pallet, or both. Now, having a 100% promise loop option is pretty nice, but it actually gets even better than this, because these wall spawns always show up in the same place on every map in the game that has one of these wall spawns. So what I mean is, these wall structures are the only thing that'll show up in this place. So for this map, it'll either be an LT, a jungle gym, or a pallet gym. There's more than these types of wall spawns, but these are the 3 most common. So if we look at this very crude representation I made in Microsoft Paint of this map, Rancid Arbiter, we can see that there are 5 wall spawn locations, and on top of that, we also have a promised location for a main building and shack. And so that totals to 7 locations on just this map with a 100% guaranteed option to loop with. Everything else is a lot more varied, and I call those filler tiles. But generally, the remaining stuff in these filler tiles are a bunch of props. They're either hay, rocks, trees, just general random junk. And they have possible pallet spawns in them. So even though a pallet could show up there, sometimes it won't. And that's not how the wall spawns work. So wall spawns are always going to have the option they have. Filler tiles are going to have a chance at a pallet. Even if there's a space for it to fit in, it won't show up. So once again, I want to reiterate, almost every single map in the game, outside of a very few indoor maps, follow this exact algorithm. So to simplify it, here are the 3 patterns listed out. Pattern number 1, wall spawns, same place. Pattern number 2, main and shack, same place. And pattern number 3, filler tiles, same place. You will never see a wall spawn show up where a filler tile showed up on the same map, and the same vice versa. So for all maps that follow these rules, which is essentially every map in the game, you'll be able to predict exactly where you will find consistent windows and pallets, and you will know where there's a chance for filler pallets to show up. When you get into your match, you're already going to have a good idea of what should be there and what shouldn't be there. You just have to figure out what exactly will be there. Because in these wall spawns, I just want to go ahead and reiterate, like LT, pallet, or jungle gym can show up in one of these spots. It's not going to be the same exact wall spawn every game, but it will only be a wall spawn. Alright, so I know that was kind of a lot about how the maps load in, but knowing this tremendously helps when it comes to identifying your loop options and connecting them together. It's much easier to know the best choice to make when you're in Chase, and what's the least risky play when you already have a pretty great idea of where things are going to show up and you can very easily see what they are from far away. And real quick, if you want a fast way to actually learn maps yourself, you can load up a map in private match with a friend and just pick a map once or twice a week to load up a few times. When you do this, just look for like the 3 patterns I mentioned. The walls, same place, the main and shack, same place, filler tiles, same place. And whoever's on killer can load up like a 5 hex totem loadout, so haunted grounds, and 3 whatever other hex totems you want, so you can actually learn totem spawns too if you really want to do that. Okay, with that foundation laid down, I'm not trying to get you to know every map within this video. I just wanted to show you the importance of learning the maps, and so you can kind of get a grasp of why it's a big deal, and kind of also learn it on your own time after this video. But with that being said, let's talk about the 4 most common situations to transfer in Chase. So number 1 is when you take a hit, number 2, when you use a pallet, number 3, when you win a mind game, and then the most important one is transferring to avoid a mind game. So like I mentioned in the previous video, everything in Chase revolves around distance. Therefore, so do these transfer rules. When you take a hit at full health, you speed up, the killer slows down, therefore you're gaining more distance away from the killer, and if you play it correctly, you can use that distance to connect yourself to another loop and be in a bit more favorable outcome, so you're not likely to get hit as early or hit again because you just got hit. So number 2 is when you use a pallet correctly. Killer usually has to break the pallet if you use it right. When the killer kicks the pallet and or gets stunned, they stay still while you get to run away, therefore they're in one place. You're running away from them, getting further distance from them, which lets you have time to travel to a new loop. Alright, so it's important to note that taking a hit and using a pallet are very basic ways and very consistent ways to transfer, but it's also important to note that these are very limited resources because, for obvious reasons, you're not immortal and pallets go bye-bye when they're kicked. So this third rule is a bit more complicated, but there are frequently situations where winning a mind game will, guess what, create distance. Wow. When this happens, you can occasionally use that to connect to another loop. However, a mind game has a very critical downside in that it's risky. Especially at the highest level, most mind games, true mind games, come down to a complete 50-50. The killer either thinks you're going to vault a window or thinks you're going to fake the window, which isn't really that consistent. Taking a 50-50 for your life isn't really that great. So this leads us to our 4th rule, and that is transferring to avoid a mind game. The community has gracefully named this W King, and in a lot of cases this is just kind of true. But if done properly, you can transfer to a nearby loop to avoid a mind game, which avoids risk, while also using no resources, so you're not taking a hit or using a pallet. Therefore, you extend chase literally perfectly. You're not risking anything, it doesn't cost you anything, you're just connecting your tiles based on the setup that you find near you, and just being able to recognize that, avoid all mind games, and get to a new loop completely for free is a massive way to make your consistency and chase go up, because if you can see that these situations exist, there's no reason to take mind games, there's no reason to take a hit, because you have a perfectly free option nearby. So with that in mind, ideally, a survivor in a perfectly optimal situation will use exclusively windows until the killer speeds up due to the bloodlust mechanic, which just makes them run faster after they chase for a little while. And the only way to get rid of that is to use a pallet or take a hit. So once you use windows a lot, the killer picks up speed and suddenly these windows aren't close enough together, you get a hit. And that's usually how chase naturally happens. So by the time bloodlust comes in, ideally in chase, you're going to be transferring exclusively using windows and only using pallets to get rid of bloodlust. That's kind of the ideal way to loop. Alright, so with all these rules laid out, for the rest of the video, I'm going to commentate over chases and discuss these transfer rules I use, as well as how my map knowledge helped me in the transferring situation. So say hi to Future Me, because Future Me is going to do the commentary, and don't forget to cat kiss the sub button. Future Me would love that. Alright, well now that the homie's been cat kissed, let's get on to the chase. So right here we're going ahead and continuing this part of the chase at the pallet, trying to get a way to transfer from this pallet and go into Shack. Because if we go into Shack, we have a very powerful window, we can stall some time for free without using any resources. And I misjudged right here when he's going to come through the door. He actually could have hit me there, but he didn't go for the swing. I'm not sure if he just didn't expect me to medium vault or not. But because of that, I end up making the second lap and getting through the window. And now that we've ran a couple laps at that, I'm pretty confident bloodlust is going to kick in a little bit. And I really don't want it to kick in after I block the window. So I transfer over to this pallet and save Shack pallet, since I want to go ahead and transfer to get rid of bloodlust. He kicks the pallet and lets me get distance. That's our transfer rule. I decided to try and run to one of these outer pallets here, because right now I'm running past what's called a pallet gym, and it's kind of more centralized in the map, so I don't really want to use that. And while I'm transferring, he's kind of mind gaming himself, so I use that to actually go all the way to the jungle gym window here. I timed this vault in a way that lets me know that he will get good distance, that I will get good distance away from him. And yeah, so now we're just kind of prioritize the window, we're watching for him. He hasn't cut off a couple times in a row, so I'm kind of confident this mind game will work. But now I expect him to think I'm going to vault, so I just transfer, but he actually doesn't think I'm going to vault. And then he actually follows right behind me, so I just go ahead and go to a different pallet, because he picked up bloodlust at that other window, and so I decided to transfer to another pallet, and guess what? We're right back to windows again. This entire chase, I started at Shack, I've used 3 pallets, and I've gone across half the map. So now I'm transferring past a pallet gym, because that's all that's right here. And I'm like, I don't want to use any pallets, so I'm trying to transfer something that doesn't have pallets, and here we are, I found an LT, which has 2 windows. I transfer into a route that's always safe, and now I kind of wait to see what he does here, and react slowly. Since he picked this route, I'm going to take the other window, and I might try to transfer out here. Yeah, so I transfer out here because we've been running out there for a minute, and I actually kind of faked like I'm going to leave and go to another window here, and use kind of like the threat of me transferring to get him to just kind of let me go right back into the LT for one more lap, and I go ahead and use this pallet. if you watch the other couple videos, I'm sure you're able to tell that I'm doing great with camera positioning, getting all the info I need, as well as managing my distance properly and only using windows and pallets when it's actually a good idea. But anywho, he kicks that pallet, so guess what? I transfer here. I'm kind of watching for him. That was a good cutoff there, but they needed to actually take advantage of it, which is okay. Not every killer is going to play perfect, and you can obviously use that to your advantage. So here I finally blocked that window, and I'm most likely going to take a hit here. If I don't, I'm probably going to have to use shack pallet, or at least take a 50-50 on this window. Yeah, so I thought he would swing early at the window, and he didn't, so I got hit, and I used the hit for transfer. So now that I've run out, I ran to the LT over here again, and I'm trying to see how long I can last chase at this LT. This is a bit greedy, so it's going to take a little bit of risk here. So I'm kind of intentionally starting off with risk, since I already took a hit. I don't want to just use a pallet right after. And that fake window thing was almost insane. I thought he was going to vault that. But since he swung right there, that gave me a little bit more distance. So normally I probably wouldn't be able to transfer out of the LT in that situation, but since he swung there, I used all that extra distance from him having to recover from his attack to go to another pallet. And I think he bloodlusts me here, if I remember right. We'll see. Yeah, so I got greedy, trying not to like force him to use the pallet and get to the window, and he uses bloodlust to get me here, and my cat meows in the background. And there you go. I hope you guys enjoyed, and hope it gives you a good insight on how to transfer and connect tiles in your chases.